Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video, where today I'm going to be completing the game with the Gen 2 evolutions, Umbreon and Espeon. And I do think that this pairing is going to do very well, for the fact that Umbreon is a much more defensive Pokemon, and Espeon is a much more offensive Pokemon. And while that might lower the amount of damage I can do in a single turn, it means that my survivability and consistency should hopefully be a lot better. So while it might not be the fastest pairing, I do think that it's going to be very good overall. So with that, let's go and get right into it. Now starting with Espeon stats, it has 65 HP, 65 attack, 60 defense, 130 special attack, 95 special defense, and 110 speed, making it a fast special attacker with solid special bulk. However, its physical stats aren't all that great. Now moving on to its moves, and it gets a lot of psychic and normal type moves, as well as quite a few support moves like Light Screen, Sunny Day, and Swagger. So even though it is more offense oriented, it does have at least the option of running some support moves. And with its great speed, it can get those off very well. Now moving on to Umbreon, it has 95 HP, 65 attack, 110 defense, 60 special attack, 130 special defense, and 65 speed. So while it might not hit incredibly hard, its incredible bulk should hopefully allow it to survive longer battles. So now moving on to its moves, it gets access to a lot of normal and dark type moves, as well as a few ghost type moves and psychic, which is always nice. However, unfortunately, it's not going to be hitting especially hard with those, which is why it has a really good support move pool with moves like Helping Hand, Confuse Ray, Screech. But the only thing it's really missing are Light Screen and Reflect, which could have been nice, but anyway, let's go ahead and move on with the run. Now the first thing I need to decide is whether or not I want to evolve our starting Eevee into Umbreon or Espeon, because it does start with the move Bite, which would be powered up by Umbreon. However, Espeon's much higher special attack means that it's going to take more advantage of it, and so I decided to pick Espeon. Now unfortunately, because the Sunstone isn't an immediate evolution, it does take a couple levels to get the Espeon. So now moving on to our Espeon in particular, it has a sassy nature, raising its special defense but lowering its speed, and the special defense could be nice. The speed drop is a bit unfortunate because I know some Pokemon in the late game might be able to outspeed me. It gets the Synchronize ability that causes any status effects that inflict me to then go back to the Pokemon that inflicted it, though it doesn't get rid of my status condition. And because I started with the Eevee, it starts with Bite, Tail Whip, Tackle, and Sand Attack. So now moving on to Umbreon, who has an impish nature, raising its defense but lowering its special attack. And unfortunately, Dark is a special attacking type in this generation, so that's not great. It also has the Synchronize ability, and it starts with Tackle, Tail Whip, Helping Hand, and Sand Attack. So with that, let's go and move on to the battle against the old man. He leads with an Abra and a Horsey. And the reason I'm showing off this fight is because this is the main strategy for these two. It's Espeon attacking with a strong special attacking move, and Umbreon backing it up with a 1.5 damage increase from Helping Hand. And this is a great strategy for many of the Eevees in the early game because a lot of them don't actually have decent attacking moves until level 16, so it's best just to support Espeon at this point. Anyway, moving on to the Power Rangers, and today I decided to fight Brown because I have super effective damage against Baltoy. Now, I do make a slight miscalculation here because Bite isn't quite a one-shot, though luckily I do get the flinch. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and do just a tiny bit of rambling. If you are enjoying this video so far, consider liking, and if you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. Now, my plan this month was to release all of the Valentine's themed videos before the end of February, and unfortunately, I couldn't quite do it. So there are going to be a couple more videos like that coming out in March. But anyway, with that, let's go and move inside the Cypher base, because at level 16, Espeon gets Confusion, and soon after, Umbreon gets Pursuit. Then I get the Carvana here for the Black Glasses item, raising Dark type damage by 10%, and with little resistance I make it to the boss of the area, Loverina. She leads with a Beautifly and a Love Disc, and I go for Bite and Helping Hand, which gets a crit and takes down Beautifly. Okay, that's very lucky. I'm not sure if it would have been able to take it down right away. Then I go for Confusion into Roselia because it is part poison, and it goes down right away, bringing out her final Pokemon, a Shadow Dokkaty. And while it could be threatening, as long as it doesn't actually hit Espeon, I think I'm fine. I go for Bite and Helping Hand, hoping for a flinch, and it takes it down to half. Unfortunately, I don't get the flinch, so it's able to hit Umbreon, doing almost nothing. And so I take it down with another Helping Hand boosted Bite, and then all that's left is the Love Disc, which isn't going to be able to take me down. So with another Bite, it goes down to low yellow, and with one more, I'm able to take down the Love Disc and beat Loverina on the first attempt, very easily. Now moving on, you of course can't have a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video without the obligatory Mirror B. How are you doing on this fine day, Mirror B? Well, that's good to hear. Anyway, at level 23, both Umbreon and Espeon get Quick Attack, and then I pick up the Ralts on top of the ONBS building for the Twisted Spoon item, raising Psychic type damage by 10%. Then, at the Realm Camp Tower, I go pick up my two favorite TMs, Hidden Power and Protect, and I teach it to both of them right away, where Espeon has Hidden Power Dragon, which isn't a terrible Hidden Power type, though unfortunately I can't hit Steel types with it, and it's only 35 base power. So now moving on to Umbreon, who got Hidden Power Bug, which is a fairly decent Hidden Power type, and it's 67 base power, so it's actually its strongest attacking move at this point. So with that, we move on, and we go into the battle against Snaddle. He leads with a Lantern and a Quagsire, and right away I go for Helping Hand and Bite. And it isn't quite a one-shot on the Quagsire, and unfortunately no flinch or a miss on Rock Tomb. I go for Hidden Power to finish off the Quagsire, but unfortunately it survives with just a little bit of HP left. Then out comes Lunatone, his first Shadow Pokemon, and Lunatone is actually weak to Bug, so I can go for Hidden Power with Umbreon and deal a decent amount of damage, and luckily Espeon can pick up the KO with another Bite. I decide not to learn Swift, though I probably could have over Hidden Power at this point, but anyway, out comes Cast Form. I go for Helping Hand and Bite, and it takes it down to low red. Unfortunately, I don't get a flinch, so it is able to hit an Icy Wind, lowering our speed. And Espeon is taken down to 17 HP, so I do need to be a little more thoughtful about what I'm doing. Unfortunately, Cast Form outspeeds now and takes it down. So I go for Pursuit to finish off the Cast Form, and then he sends out Metang, his final Pokemon. Now, even though Umbreon is incredibly bulky, it is unfortunately up against two Pokemon, and with very little damage output, it's not really going to leave much of a dent on Metang. So despite a valiant struggle, unfortunately Umbreon does get whittled down, but not before getting one good hit in with a critical hit Pursuit. Now I go back into the battle once again, and this time I have Espeon actually bite Quagsire because I saw that Bite was doing about 3/4 of its health when paired with Helping Hand. So that should mean that Bite does half, which it does. Though unfortunately it is a range, so it does survive another Bite, and so I take it down with Hidden Power, which was supposed to go into the Shadow Lunatone. So that does throw off my planning just a little bit, but I know that Umbreon outspeeds and takes it down. Then out comes Cast Form once again, and I know that it doesn't go down to a single Bite, so I have Umbreon, instead of using Helping Hand this time, just go for a Hidden Power, which does do about 1/4 to it, so I should be able to finish it off on the next turn. So I decided to go for Bite into Lantern, though one thing I didn't account for is the fact that my speed was just dropped another stage. So Cast Form is actually able to outspeed Umbreon, which means Espeon takes quite a bit of damage there for no reason. And then he sends out his final Pokemon, Metang. And I go for Bite and Helping Hand to deal as much damage to it as I can. And it actually does nearly 3/4 of its health. So I know I can finish off the next turn with just a Bite. And so I go for that, take it down, and then all that's left is the Lantern, which goes for another Shockwave, dealing almost nothing. Pursuit, also dealing almost nothing though. And Bite finishes it off. So we beat Snaddle on the second attempt, and before the next boss fight, I decided to go ahead and teach Psychic to Umbreon, which might seem a bit strange, but Espeon is getting Psybeam in a level anyway. So now moving on to Gonzap, he leads with an Electrode and a Nuzleaf, and right away the Nuzleaf is going to go for Fake Out, and Electrode is luckily going for Sonic Boom this time. I go for Psychic, which does over half with a crit, and Electrode goes down to a Psybeam, then out comes Vileplume. I go for Hidden Power into Nuzleaf because it's 4 times effective, and then he sends out Whiscash. And at this point I really need to get rid of the Vileplume because it does have Sleep Powder, and luckily it goes down to a single Psybeam, and then out comes Skarmory, which doesn't take much damage from Umbreon, though there's really nothing Umbreon can do against it. So I go for Helping Hand and Psybeam to take it down to low red. It hits a Hyper Beam, really not doing that much, and another Hyper Beam takes Espeon down to 15. Now at this point, because both are recharging, I decide to go ahead and take down the Whiscash, but unfortunately it does survive on just a sliver. So Psybeam finishes off the Skarmory, and a Psychic takes down the Whiscash. So pretty easy Gonzap. So with that, we move on. At level 36, Umbreon gets the move Feint Attack, which I decide to teach over Hidden Power, and then at level 47, Espeon finally gets the move Psychic. We then move on to the battle against Gorgon. He leads with Flareon and a Celio, and I decide to double into the Celio with Psychic, and I get a crit, taking it down right away. And so unfortunately the next Psychic does almost nothing to Slowking, though it also got a crit, which is very nice. Go for Bite. Unfortunately it survives on just a little bit of HP left, so Feint Attack finishes it off, and then out comes Ursaring. And so I decided to go ahead and go for a Psychic Helping Hand to take it down in a single turn. And then he sends out his first Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Primeape. Now Primeape really shouldn't be an issue because I should outspeed and take it down in a single hit anyway. But there is another issue starting to creep up, and that is the fact that Umbreon is down 2 stages in his defense. So there is a chance that Flareon could start becoming a threat. Though luckily I do get a special defense drop on it, so it goes down in 1 hit, and then all that's left is the Shadow Hypno, which hits a surprisingly weak Shadow Storm. So go for Feint Attack, doing about a third, and then a Bite finishes it off. So with that, we move on to the last area of the game, and I'd just like to say that currently these two are fairly competitive with the other 2 Eevee duos that I've done so far. So as long as there's no major slowdowns, it should be pretty close. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead and go into the battle against Lorena. She leads with the Gardevoir and a Gorbis, and right away I go for Helping Hand to raise the power of Bite to hopefully take down Gardevoir, which it does, and then out comes Roselia. Unfortunately, Gorbis is going to be able to use Attract. I go for Psychic into Gorbis, which unfortunately doesn't happen, and I go for Psychic into Roselia, which isn't quite a one-shot. It's able to set up Leech Seed, and Umbreon gets attracted as well. So I desperately need to get rid of the Gorbis, so I go for Psychic into it, and unfortunately neither of my Eevees are able to move. But eventually I will be able to break free because Infatuation is only a 50% chance of happening. So Espeon's able to get through on the following turn, take down Gorbis, thus the Attract goes away for both of them. Then out comes Shadow Farfetch'd. I go for Psychic into the Roselia, which unfortunately it is healed just enough to survive, so I am going to have to take it down on the following turn, though luckily I think that lines up pretty good for me. I go for Psychic to take down the Shadow Farfetch'd, and then out comes their final Pokemon, a Shadow Altaria. And what's great about having Farfetch'd go down first is that Altaria won't receive the Leech Seed that the Roselia set up. So all that's left is Altaria, and I go for Psychic, takes it down to low yellow, and a second Psychic. Surprisingly doesn't take it down from there, though Umbreon does redeem itself with a crit Quick Attack to take it down. So at level 52, Espeon gets the move Morning Sun, which I decide to teach over Quick Attack, and before the next boss I decide to teach Protect over Hidden Power. So with that, we go into the battle against Snaddle. He lives with Quagsire and a Matang, and I'm going to go for the Quagsire right away with a Helping Hand and Psychic to take it down in a single hit. And then he sends out his Scizor, and this is potentially his most dangerous Pokemon because it has Silver Wind for super effective damage against both of my Pokemon, and it resists Psychic type moves, so I go for Helping Hand and Psychic, and luckily it does take it down in a single hit. And then he sends out his first Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Solrock, and because I doubt I'm going to be able to take it down this turn, I decide to go for Feint Attack and Morning Sun because it's the last chance Espeon will get to have a decent heal with Morning Sun, because its effect is halved whenever Shadow Sky is active. And so I'm able to get up to full health once again, and then I go for Bite and it takes down the Solrock, and then out comes Castform, and I go for Psychic into it, dealing nearly half, so I know I'll be able to finish it off with Espeon on the following turn. And so I go for Psychic, which finishes it off, and then he sends out his final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Starmie. And Shadow Starmie really shouldn't be too much of an issue this time because I'm able to get off Feint Attack damage, dealing quite a bit to it. And then on the next turn, Espeon can finish it off with a Bite, and then all I need to worry about is the Matang, which at this point is way too weak to do anything to me. Feint Attack takes it down below half, and then after a round of Fruity Pebbles, I go for Bite to finish it off. So with that, we beat Snaddle on the first attempt, and we move on to Ardos, who leads with a Shadow Swallow and Alakazam. And right away I'm going to get rid of the Alakazam because even though it doesn't do much damage with the Elemental Punches or Psychic, it does have the chance to give me status effects, which I really don't want to risk, especially if this battle ends up taking a long time. So I'd get rid of it right away, and Bite actually takes it down in a single hit, which is good to know, though that could have just been arranged. On the following turn, I decide to take down Swallow with a Helping Hand Psychic, but it actually decides to go for Shadow Half. So after I take down the Swallow, he sends out Heracross, and by having the HP of Kingdra, I think there's a good chance that I can have Umbreon finish off the Kingdra and then go for Psychic to take down the Heracross. So I do just that. I go for Feint Attack into the Kingdra and Psychic into Heracross. Of course, Heracross goes down because it's half fighting. And then out comes his second Shadow Pokemon, the Shadow Electabuzz, and Kingdra gets finished off by Feint Attack. So he sends out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Snorlax, and I can either take down Electabuzz this turn to make it so it's not going to attack or use Shadow Mist, or I can start attacking the Snorlax, but if it does go for Shadow Mist or attack, I think there's a good chance I can lose. So I decide to get rid of the Electabuzz first, and then all that's left is the Snorlax. I go for Protect and Psychic, and while the Psychic really isn't doing that much damage from Umbreon, as long as it doesn't hit, I think I'm fine. I go for Bite, hoping for a flinch, and another Psychic, taking it down nearly to half. I get a flinch. I go for Psychic and Helping Hand, so I can deal a lot of damage at once, and it actually takes it down from over half health. So with Ardos defeated, we now move on to Gorgon, who leads with a Slowking and an Ursaring, and right away I'm going to try to take down the Slowking with a Bite. And luckily it does go down. Then he sends out his next Pokemon, and Aggron, and I go for Psychic into Ursaring, and Psychic takes it down in a single turn. Then he sends out Walrein, and I hit another Psychic, dealing a little bit of damage. Aggron decided to go for Iron Tail this turn, and then it goes for Protect, go for Psychic to take down the Walrein, and then he sends out his first Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Poliwrath. Now it is part Fighting type, so I know this is going to do a decent amount of damage, and with a Special Defense drop, it's guaranteed to go down the following turn, and then he sends out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Mr. Mime. Umbreon goes for Feint Attack into it, dealing over half. Aggron hits an Iron Tail into Espeon, lowering its defense, but not actually doing half to it. Go for Psychic, it survives on a Sliver. Mr. Mime goes down to a Feint Attack. Another Iron Tail does unfortunately finish off Espeon because of that defense drop, but Aggron goes down the following turn. So we move on to the battle against Ardos. He leads with a Shadow Manectric and Ninjask, and right away both of these Pokemon are very dangerous. Ninjask has Silver Wind, dealing quite a bit of damage to my Pokemon, and Manectric can set up Shadow Sky, so I want to get rid of Manectric as soon as possible. So I take it down with Psychic, and then out comes his Shadow Salamence. Go for Psychic into Ninjask, doing over half. Another Silver Wind, and unfortunately it gets an Omni Boost, so there's a good chance that it actually survives another Psychic. And it does, though Umbreon actually has the perfect counter to it, going for Quick Attack to finish it off. He then sends out his Flygon, and Psychic finishes off the Salamence. And before the next Pokemon comes out, I level up to level 52 and get the move Moonlight, which I teach over Quick Attack. And then he sends out his next Pokemon, a Shadow Marowak, which needs to go down immediately because it has Shadow Wind and the Thick Club item. So it goes down to a single Psychic, and then he sends out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Lapras. Now, because the Shadow Sky weather condition isn't set up, it is going to go for that on the first turn, so it's not dangerous right away. So I go for Helping Hand and Psychic to take it down to low health, and it sets up Shadow Sky, though luckily Espeon looks like it has just enough HP to survive the Shadow Sky. Go for another Psychic to take down the Flygon, and then all that's left is the Lapras, which goes down to one last Psychic. So with that, Eldest is defeated, and we move on to the big box legendary, Shadow Lugia, and I go for Helping Hand and Bite to deal as much damage as I can to it, and Lugia actually outspeeds, hitting a pretty solid Shadow Blast onto Umbreon, though it does tank it very well. I decide to go for Protect onto Espeon, hoping that it decides to attack it and not deal damage this turn, then another Helping Hand and Bite to finish it off, though not without taking Umbreon down to half health. So I go into the final battle against Gravel. He leads with a Shadow Rhydon and Moltres, and I go for Helping Hand and Psychic right away to take down the Moltres, which is a one-shot, though it would be nice to see whether or not that's going to one-shot without the Helping Hand. Rhydon luckily misses, so I'm able to get a bit further in the fight, go for Psychic, which takes down the Rhydon, then out comes Tauros. And at this point, I can either keep the Tauros alive, or I can leave the Executor alive. And unfortunately, I don't really get the choice anymore because Executor lands a crit Shadow End, taking Umbreon down in a single hit. So I decide to get rid of Executor because it does hit on the physical side, which Espeon is not well suited for. He then sends out Articuno, and because the Shadow Sky is up, I want to protect every other turn to stall it out for as long as possible. That way, eventually, Tauros will have to set it up again. Though unfortunately, that plan kind of falls away the moment I see Shadow Chill do half to Espeon. So even if I did try to stall it out, eventually I am going to go down. So I decided to go ahead and take down Articuno to get the extra experience, and I get finished off by Shadow Rush. So with that, we go into the battle for a second attempt. Now Umbreon is at full health, and because I feel confident I can win, I decide to go ahead and use up all my rare candies, giving 3 to each of my Eevees. And unfortunately, Moltres is not a one-shot with Psychic, though that is good to know in case I do lose this second attempt. And I go for Psychic to take down Rhydon, out comes Tauros, and I go for Feint Attack to deal damage to the Executor, taking it down to low yellow, but Shadow End takes Espeon down just a little below half. Then I go for a Psychic into the Tauros, because even though Executor is dangerous, it's only a 60% chance to actually hit. So there is that chance that it just doesn't. Unfortunately, I don't get that on the second attempt either. I go for Psychic and Helping Hand to take down the Articuno now that it's taken a little bit of damage, which luckily it does go down, and then he sends out his final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Zapdos. Shadow Ent hits once again, taking Espeon down, and while Umbreon might be able to do it, it is going to be very luck dependent. So I get rid of the Executor, and then because I'm going to be taking quite a bit of damage from this Shadow Bolt, I go for Moonlight to heal up to a little over half, and then I'll go for it again to get up to full. Now the problem with stalling against Greevil is that all of his legendary birds have the Shadow move of their respective type, and even though Shadow Bolt giving paralysis isn't the worst effect from the three, it does mean that if it happens to happen, this attempt is basically dead. So it does kind of come down to a lot of luck. That, and if I get crit at any point, like I did just there, and I was at half health, that would have instantly KO'd me. And on top of that, I'm running out of Moonlights. In fact, I think that was the last Moonlight, which I probably should have used PP ups on, but I didn't think about it. Though, as long as Zapdos doesn't crit here, I actually do get the victory. That was very nicely done, Umbreon. Anyway, with that, how well did these two do? Well, they beat the game at a time of 7 hours 55 minutes on the dot, with Espeon being level 60 and Umbreon being level 55. And they had a total of 4 faints throughout the game, 2 of those to bosses and 2 of those to random trainers. So let's go ahead and go over the positives first, that being, as we saw in the final fight, even if the stronger attacking side of the team goes down, there is a good chance that the walling capabilities of Umbreon can make bad situations victories just simply because it's able to outlast the other Pokemon. The other thing is that Umbreon gets access to a lot of great support moves, and even though I didn't utilize them as much as I thought I was going to, Helping Hand was useful throughout the entire run, and if any of the boss fights were too hard, Umbreon always had access to Substitute or Swagger. That would have helped a lot against Greevil if it were necessary, but it really wasn't from the look of it. Now the downsides of these two is obviously, even though Umbreon has the possibility of surviving, it's not always guaranteed, and like in that final fight, had a crit happened sooner or had it got hit with a paralysis, there's a good chance it would have lost. On top of that, whenever the main offensive Pokemon goes down, battles drag on a lot longer than they needed to, which is unfortunately where I think these two struggle compared to the other evolution pairings that I've done so far, because they find themselves near the top of S tier. Umbreon unfortunately doesn't add a lot of damage to battles, though it does chip things into range for Espeon to finish off, which is really nice, but it adds a lot of time to battles. So with that being said, they still did extremely well, finding themselves near the top of S tier, and if you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!